Hi, all of you. Good afternoon. Good evening. First of all, apologies for cancelling the last class. So I'm still on the schedule in the sense we'll be on time for the tests. So today is 28th November. This is models and theories. And 30th November, this is your practice test. Otherwise, the practice test was scheduled for today, but I'm making up for the class I missed on last Friday. Hi, good evening, all of you. Mamta, Prabjot, Shivai, Subha, Monica. Hi, all of you. Good evening, good afternoon. Okay. So now see, what I say in the foundation class is a bit different from what I'll tell you guys. Difference ये है that foundation class, you'll have a lot of students who are not committed as much. वो इतनी, their intensity is missing. Okay. But for you guys, and some of you have given the mains, 3 of you are in service already. So the game is a bit different. Some of you have given the prelims last time, nahi hua hai, for whatever reasons. So my suggestion to you guys is, yeah, I'm answering that. Okay. So I'm answering that question. Don't switch into 100% prelims right now. The temptation is very high. I know it. Okay. Because restlessness, and you live in a community, ORN, maybe your own friends, restlessness, and you can't really be immune to that. Around you guys are jumping already. Okay. So beta ye jumping jacks har saal hote hain. Okay. You have to follow a method to this. And those of you who have done the geography with me, enrichment, you are on the process. So I have got 2 suggestions for you. One is, we will start the prelims preparation somewhere around mid or 3rd week of December onwards. Okay, we have a method for that also. But aap abhi nahi chodoge enrichment classes. Okay, be with me. So what will happen is, the foundation classes for most of you, there are 2 groups. One is your classes are over. Okay, last year. Others who have joined me in the month of June, July, okay, aapka khatam ho jayega by January tak. And the topics I have now in the foundation, they are not difficult topics. Okay, ek baar sun liya dhyan se, understood the concept. Okay, and technical words, not like what we have in geographical thought. Just come to class in foundation, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, whatever we have. Spend another half an hour, make quick jottings and close. Iske beyond foundation nahi karna aap log. Okay. Some of you are writing answers, I know, showing it to me. I'll say you stop that for foundation class. You do the work the way we are doing for the mains preparation. And this is not an everyday preparation. Aapko अच्छा खासा gap diya hua hai beech mein, so that the pressure is distributed. And what we can do is, your final tests, see those who are preparing, some of you are there, preparing for 25, I'll say you don't flinch, you continue with me. But those who are giving in 24, if you are getting less confident about the prelims, your final full length tests, usko hum shift kar denge after your prelims. Okay? So that from January, Feb onwards, hardcore into prelims you enter with me. Okay? So do not, so we have a plan, I said, we'll have a planner for all of you. Yes, we'll do that. See, I'm willing to bend whatever is okay, practically possible for me and operationally deliverable for me. Okay, the problem is, at this stage, you say, sir, pura course change kar do, kaise hoga batao? You have done almost more than 3/4 of the course. Now you tell me, sir, I cannot do it, shift me for December. It's like you're doing the course twice already. It's unfair on my part. Okay, so I cannot do that. But the tests part, okay, I'll definitely help you on that. That's one thing. Second, last program in prelims, I struggled with the students to some extent, despite me teaching how to analyze the questions, how to understand the progress. It was not easy. Okay, the students refused to fill up those forms. Confident kya hai, smart kya hai, give analysis. Despite telling you repeatedly, people are not doing. So this time I got it automated. Pravash, too late to shift the entire enrichment now. Okay, it's like, you know, आपने movie देख लिया 3 घंटे का मूवी, 2.5 घंटे देखने के बाद बोल रहे सर अगले बार मैं शिफ्ट करा दो. Okay, यार आई एम रनिंग इंस्टीट्यूट, only as much I can do. You put a mail and we'll see what we can, but not in my hand. All I can do is, आपने अटेंड नहीं किया. प्रभाष, मैं मूवी हॉल गया, टिकट में मेरे पास है सर, प्रॉमिस में नाक नहीं खोला था. Okay, so let's not debate it here. Okay, you have to be equally responsible. I am willing to stretch myself, but think from my side. Okay, if I allow one, maybe you are genuine. What harm others? और इंडिया में बेटा सर्टिफिकेट निकल जाता है. Okay, I have done it, I know it. So you talk to the office, write a mail. I will not intervene in this. Okay, but be wise there. Don't act like small children kindergarten में. ऐसे ना करो. Having said that, so prelims का एक process है, and like I said, no, I am biased towards you guys because you have come quite a distance with me. मैं चाहता हूं कि आप prelims दें, mains निकालें. Okay, we'll provide whatever support we can there. So the crux of the whole discussion is don't leave enrichment right now. Okay, be with me for another 1.5 months. Sense of completion, because we have done the big parts. We have done small moving parts will not take you so much of efforts anymore. Okay, and I'll tell you when you can go slow. So foundation class, जो class बच्चे आप लोग हो foundation classes में, come to class. Okay, 2.5 hours, whatever we teach. Not even 1 hour, half an hour, quick summaries like jottings, then close. Okay, वो सब काम आएगा आपको बाद में during the mains discussion. And let these sessions go on. And my request to all of you is, don't skip the practice test. Last time भी आप लोगों ने दिया नहीं practice test, because you know it's after all the intensity. Mains is all about writing. Okay, so don't miss. You missed one, do the next one. अच्छा बुरा जो भी है, whatever you know, write down. I've given the questions to you. I've given the answers to you. Whatever you can modify. The idea is don't target a perfect attempt. वो perfection कभी नहीं आएगा. Start the process and innovate as you are progressing ahead. ठीक है? So having said that, we have an announcement. Morning, those who are there, I told them. So we have an all India test going on right now. Okay, all 100 questions across all subjects for good proper 2 hours का test है. Log in and give the test for the prelims so that you know exactly where you are. And the questions are L2, L3 level. Okay, you'll have an analysis of that also. So attempt the test, all of you. I'm counting all of you ultimately will give prelims, and okay, let's hope for the best there. So give that test, and the rest I'll let you know as you progress. Okay, fine. So the last unit for the next test, models and theories. Okay, so my approach is same. We'll focus on how to answer the questions. The topics are systems analysis. The topic includes von Thunen's theory, Weber's theory. We have population का Malthus theory, Marxist theory, demographic transition model, central place theory, August Losch's modification of central place theory. We have the Rostov's model, growth pole and center concept, Mackinder and Spikeman, borders and frontiers. ये आपका syllabus है. In this, we will leave these topics: Malthus theory of population, Marxist population theory, DTM theory, okay, CPT, Losch. This we will cover as a part of your population and settlement geography. The अगले test में we will have these questions. We'll focus on only these topics. So those older students, don't prepare everything. Okay, so system analysis, von Thunen, Weber's model, Rostov's growth pole theory, okay, so Rostov's theory, growth pole theory, Mackinder, Spikeman, borders and frontiers. I'll spend a few minutes first to show you what type of questions are asked. Okay, questions are not what is systems analysis. Questions are not what is growth pole theory. These questions are largely applied types and they are analytical types. And I'm expecting more and more on these lines. RDP will take up in the next one. So what I've clubbed regional development, transport, trade, political geography, okay, agriculture. ये सब हमने club करा because regional development doesn't happen without all of this. Okay, so other topics of regions, concept, planning, वो सब अगले अलग test में होगा. So let's focus on these topics alone. I'm presuming somewhere you know the syllabus. Okay, I hope I'm not overestimating. दिखा देते हैं यार. Syllabus should be on your fingertips. Okay. If I miss some, we can add up here. So systems analysis, human geography, syllabus आपके पास होना चाहिए. Every time you walk, you talk, syllabus in your bag, in your pocket, whatever. Like a systems analysis, human geography, Malthus, Marxian demographic transition model, the central place theory of Christaller and Losch, Pérouse and Baudelaire's growth pole concept, von Thunen's model, Weber's model, Ostov नहीं है, Rostov's model है, Heartland, Rimland, laws of boundaries and frontiers. Okay, so I'm leaving जो आपका box से mark कर दिया है. These topics will take up under population and settlement geography. ठीक है? So let me show you the questions once. So this year's paper first. And I'll recommend you all come prepared to the class. Questions पढ़ के आया करो so that you have a sense of what is going to be asked and why. Let's start off. The paper one. So geostrophic wind, ocean drenching, soil enrichment, deep ecology, economic geology, paleomagnetism, weather, this one, currents, local winds, penny plains. So section A में remember, geographical thought models होता नहीं है. Okay, leave section A. Section B, okay. So sequential development of areal differentiation. To tell us how did, now don't write this as sequent occupants. It's asking you, how did areal differentiation develop in geography? The story starts with its regional approach. Mention Hecataeus, just Peridos, mention Strabo, mention Herodotus, talk about Varenius' special geography, Kant's chorology, mention Hettner's ideas, okay, of ideographic approach, and then come to Hartshorne's areal differentiation, what he said, and 2 lines after that, how this approach was changed in the later chorology under humanistic geography. So what is the sequential development of areal differentiation as a fundamental concept in human geography? The modern areal differentiation is very different from what Hartshorne had said. So what timeline पूछ रहा है आपको? Okay, I presume you should have done this. Okay. Nutrition problems, balance, push-pull, Malthus. Look at this question. Discuss the different types of polarization. Discuss the different types of polarization, induced spatial inequalities and imbalances associated with growth poles. याद रखो, nobody would have read this question like this. All would have read what is growth pole, who gave the concept, okay, what are the examples, वो पढ़े होंगे to different degrees of details. But this phrasing is impossible that students would have prepared for this. Okay, so you have to think right on your seat. What are the different types of polarizations? What are the different type of spatial inequalities, okay, associated with the growth poles? Okay, so you have to think on this. Okay, the fact is the growth poles can cause inequalities. The question is why? That why? What are those types of inequalities? Okay, so examples will be inequalities will be dominance of some firms. We call that as monopoly. Monopoly is one type of growth pole based inequality. Second type of growth pole inequality will be, okay, industrial agglomerations. Okay, something like cumulative causation process. That one area has all that advantage or the one firm has all that advantage. Iske examples hain, ports can be one type of inequalities. Okay, one type of inequalities could be the major market centers. Urban areas can be one type of inequalities. Okay, so any answer, I believe, if you have got 4 or 5 points, the answer is done. Uske baad, the challenge is how to elaborate this. Okay, so listing down, what are, yeah, so broadly, monopoly is one type of inequality. The second is agglomeration is one type of inequality. Ye do main type of inequality hote hain. Okay, monopolies, when few firms, one firm dominates the entire system, doesn't allow others to develop. That's one. Second is agglomeration, some areas, okay, some locations develop it. ठीक है, agglomerations examples हैं industrial agglomerations, urban agglomerations, and port centers. Okay, एक third type की inequality है, which is dominance of some sectors. Okay, say services sector dominates, neglect of farming sector. Okay, or maybe manufacturing dominates. Okay, neglect of services. Okay, and maybe agriculture. So sectoral domination, regional agglomeration, okay, and monopolies are 3 type of inequalities. Uske baad discussion hoga, okay, why they develops, okay, because discuss bola hai, don't just list down what the, okay, inequalities are, tell us how they develop. Is it okay, all of you? ठीक है, we'll come back, maybe discuss on structure afterwards, but an example of what I mean by applied answers. ऐसे questions आप सोच के अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा. It cannot be a book से कौन सा पढ़ें. Okay, that's one question. Second, अच्छा, in this question or in this test, I will not even add limits to growth, because limits to growth is more of a planning environment concept. ठीक है, to leave that for now. Okay, this is Losch model. I will not even add limits to growth, because limits to growth is more of a planning environment concept. Okay, to leave that for now. Okay, this is Losch model, central place theory. Ignore this. Land management, rule expressions, planning region. This one, 8C. Boundaries and frontiers have different meanings in geographical literature. Substantiate to answer in the present context. Okay. So I think most of us would have read this, that boundaries are different, frontiers are different. Though in regular layman language, okay, they might be seen as synonyms. Okay. Otherwise, geographically we say, or in terms of geographical concept, boundaries are lines. Okay. Boundaries are well drawn as a consequence of treaties. Boundaries can be the last stage in the development of frontiers. Okay. Boundaries are the consequence of modern nation states. Frontiers are largely natural. Frontiers are not because of treaties, and frontiers are a zone. Okay. Frontiers have both a centrifugal and centripetal also. Okay, and explain that. और आपको example देना पड़ेगा from the present day context. Give some examples of boundaries, give examples of frontiers and how they are transited. Okay, so yes, in the evolution, we start with boundaries, and the boundaries ultimately evolve into more distinct. Start with frontiers, and the frontiers, they evolve into demarcated, okay, well agreed in most cases as linear boundaries. So these two questions. So har saal, I mean, if you add the other questions, every year, 3, 4, 5 questions can be models and theories. Von Thunen, Weber, CPT model, okay, borders and frontiers, हर alternate year पूछ रहा है. Spikeman, Rimland नहीं पूछा है. My guess इस बार पूछने वाला है, coming year. So they keep rotating. That's why it's a rich area. Geographical thought, regional development planning, and your models and theories. This can give you bulk of the questions of section B of paper 1, if you control this properly. नहीं, वेदांत mistake नहीं है. I mean, that's okay. But it is talking in the present context to talk about present. ये नहीं याद है तो give an older one. ठीक है, fine. But there are enough examples present day context. So you have a sense of the question now? Okay. Let's take up some more questions of the previous years. Yes. Tell me which are the boundaries. Tell me which are the frontiers today. Okay. What are the issues because they are frontiers? What are the issues because they are boundaries? So don't talk about boundary problems about India. In general, what are the issues around boundaries and how they're different from the issues around frontiers? The example of? Yes. Boundaries तो है उनके पास. Okay. You have? नहीं आप. अच्छा ठीक है. Let me take this question up. Asking me, can we take the example of Russia, Ukraine? Yes, but you should know how to discuss it. Okay, I'll discuss this question with all of you. So, boundaries versus frontiers. Okay. एक तो question है कि how will you discuss this? So my discussion always is have a suggestion is have an intro, make a table, like a diagram. In my table, what I would have done is I would have drawn frontiers and boundaries. They are zone, they are linear, these are largely natural, they are like barriers, these are always man-made. Okay, these are not based on treaties, although treaties can accept them. Tibet as a frontier was accepted as a frontier, but Tibet is not made by treaties. Okay, so treaties accept them. Boundaries can, in fact, generally, boundaries are because of treaties. Okay, because of ceasefire. Some agreements are there. Okay, frontier zones, these are always subjective. Okay, the boundaries क्या limits हैं, ये subjective होगा. boundaries, they are largely objective, okay, and if they are subjective, they can lead to conflicts. Frontiers, they avoid conflicts. Okay, when the frontiers become conflict zones, they start developing into boundaries. Otherwise, frontier zone is like a zone you can't enter, I can't enter, both agree, okay, let's not cross this. Okay, and the forest becomes the frontier. Okay, the large desert becomes the frontier. Okay, but if the frontier starts having say conflicts, it is converting into boundaries. Okay, and temporally frontiers precede boundaries. So ऐसे 4-5 point मैंने listing कर देना है. The examiner reads introduction 2-3 lines. Oh, he knows this, ठीक है. Okay, and finish this one. And here I can have some examples. Examples of frontiers: Tibet, Sahara, okay, maybe Arctic zone. Okay, maybe you can talk about the Amazon forest. So 3-4 reasons, bata diya, examples. And boundaries. We have the 49th parallel, we have the Rees line, Radcliffe line, McMahon line. Bata diya. So this tells me I know the concept. Then I'll move on towards discussing one by one. Okay, I must differentiate and give examples also. Okay, so I'll take up the first point. ये zone है, ये linear है. Okay, their frontiers are a zone. Okay, they have an aerial extent. Okay, they can be across couple of few kilometers wide. Okay, they can be like the natural physical regions, examples of which in the medieval times and in the early history, okay, in the 17th, 18th, Tibet ho gaya, or colonial times, Tibet was a frontier zone. We had Sahara as a, give examples here. Okay, in recent times, frontiers do not exist. Most frontiers have converted into boundaries. And examples of boundaries, linear, say something like that, and give examples here. So in one discussion, I've taken care of their zones, they are natural, okay, these are linear. Okay, I've explained one discussion. The second discussion is that frontiers, they do not have conflicts, and they in fact stop conflicts. But boundaries, because they are treaties, boundaries, because they are linear, they divide sharply. If there are disagreements, there can be conflicts. So if ye keh rahe ho, then you can say, okay, the Russia and Ukraine, okay, conflicts. Ya fir, historically, Russia views Ukraine as a frontier zone against the NATO. हम ये कह सकते हैं कि रशिया का perception में the Black Sea and Ukraine, the East European economies are like frontier zones. So with the NATO advancing and expanding its influence to include, okay, Hungary, talks about including Ukraine, okay, that is when the conflicts have now started. So जब ये लिख के लिखोगे, perfectly fine. I hope you got the point here. So you have examples, good, but you must know how to use it. Yes, absolutely. Finland was also like a frontier zone, okay, between Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, which were US influenced vis-a-vis Russia. Okay, and when Finland becomes part of the NATO influence, you can have conflicts. Yes. So is context mein, see, when you ask me, sir, can we write this? My answer always is, tell me how you write that first. How are you developing your story first? Okay, that decides. So can I write this example? Yes, you can, but I must know how are you treating it. Okay. So for a long time, okay, Central Asia, okay, Central Asia was like a frontier zone. In fact, during the Cold Wars, okay, the USSR Russian-controlled territory heartland was separated from the rimland regions of US influence. It acted as a buffer zone, acted as a frontier zone until the Russian invasion of Afghanistan, and that's where the conflicts have started. The rise of Taliban and the terrorism, whatever we have. Okay, so yes, frontiers can become conflicts in recent times. That's how you develop your answer. Conclusion is the fact that boundaries have conflicts, okay, does not make the boundaries irrelevant. Boundaries as a concept irrelevant. Okay, many boundaries have conflicts, but that does not mean boundary is an irrelevant word. Okay, the conflicts are because of, okay, the reasons and the processes that led to the boundaries formation. Okay, so the colonial influence and the boundary formation. Okay, maybe some erstwhile wars and the boundary formation. जैसे कि वो peace line है या armistice line है. Okay, or it is a ceasefire line, like India's LOC is like a ceasefire line. Okay, so these type of boundaries are conflicts because the remnants of past expansionist tendencies. Okay, however, boundaries are the most important innovation of the modern nation state concepts. Okay, but globalization, but migrations, climatic issues have added complexities in boundaries management. Okay, so migrations, refugee movements, they've added complexities. So I ended the answer in the present day context issues. Give example here. कि boundary, for example, Pakistan and Afghanistan का boundary शुरू हो गया अब आपका. Okay, so now they are challenging, okay, the boundary between Afghanistan, Pakhtun areas and rest of Afghanistan. This will be an issue of conflict and so on. Yeah, Durand line is challenged between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So what I did was I start with introduction, then I tabular form I gave the scope of the content. This tells us that, oh, this is what I have an answer. I take up 2 or 3 points for conversation. Okay, so they're natural, they are conflict zones, they are treaties or whatever. Discuss that and conclusion in the present day context. That's how it was, Nikita. The Himalayan region, Nepal, they were like the frontier zones between India and China. But the McMahon line and the Radcliffe line, eventually the ambitions of China is now compromising, and we have got boundary conflict because of whatever now. Yes, you can add that. No, boundary is drawn. Okay, don't say the boundary between India and China is not there. Don't say that, please. Boundary is drawn. We are following the McMahon line in the eastern sector. Okay, but then China refuses to respect or acknowledge that. Okay. Yes. Yeah, but then oceans is asking me, are oceans a frontier zone? Oceans are frontiers in terms of resources rather than frontiers between political territories. So they are frontiers of, you can say, human endeavors. ठीक है कि हमें वहां पर जाना है in some ways, but they are not really frontiers in terms of political divisions. So oceans are resource frontiers. Okay, oceans are maybe frontiers of biodiversity. Okay, but don't call them as political frontiers, because we have accepted the oceans are the global commons. They have to be shared and they'll never convert into boundaries. UNCLOS tried it, but open seas abhi bhi open hi hai. So don't give that example there. Yes, rivers, if big enough, they become frontiers, but in most cases the rivers become the boundaries. ठीक है? Okay. Yes. Resource area है ना? Is EEZ stopping the access of other countries into the EEZ? In fact, ships can enter right up to your territorial waters under rights of innocent passage. Okay. इसलिए हम कह रहे हैं ना, oceans are more in terms of resource frontiers rather than political frontiers between political territories. Things can change for Arctic Ocean. We don't have a clarity how Arctic Ocean, will Arctic Ocean be governed under UNCLOS or not? हमें नहीं पता. Because Arctic traditionally has been treated as solid land. So for Arctic, we need a separate set of negotiations, and they're doing it. They have an Arctic Commission to decide on what to do with Arctic. Acha, now that I'm with this topic, your syllabus says, the syllabus says, laws of frontiers and boundaries. Okay? The syllabus says laws of frontiers and boundaries. So there is laws of the oceans, and there are laws of the land boundaries. We do not have laws of frontiers. ठीक है? जो भी laws बनेंगे, laws of the boundaries बनेंगे. Laws of the oceans, whatever you know, UNCLOS के अंदर में, territorial waters, contiguous zone, the EEZ, the baseline, internal waters, archipelagic waters, go on there. So one good paragraph, okay, we have some laws on the oceans, like in terms of the deep sea mining. Now high seas treaty also comes under UNCLOS ultimately. So you can write this down, no problem. Laws of the oceans. Okay. Laws of the land boundaries essentially is how are boundaries drawn? What are the laws using which we draw the boundaries? And remember, all boundaries essentially are man-made. You might use a physical element. I can use the river as a boundary, ठीक है? But वो boundary बना because we agreed कि river, let us use river as a boundary. So all boundaries are man-made, even if they're based on physical elements. Okay. Now, one type of boundaries are the ceasefire lines. Ceasefire lines or armistice lines. Okay. LOC is one, North Korea, South Korea is one boundary. Because of conflicts, we agreed, let's stop fighting here. The ceasefire lines and armistice lines. North Vietnam, South Vietnam before integration was again a kind of a ceasefire line. Examples: North Korea, South Korea, North Vietnam, South Vietnam before integration. Okay. West Germany, East Germany before integration. Or India, Pakistan, Kashmir, Ladakh mein, the LOC lines. LOC, LAC. Okay. Yeah, to some extent even your Palestine, Israel, okay, was also a type of a ceasefire line after the Arab War. ठीक है? So इसमें लिख लेंगे example. See, इस question में ना, it's all about examples. So that's one. Okay, the law essentially is what the militaries agree on. The second is, if we use rivers, okay, there are two laws. One is the Thalweg law. Thalweg law. Other is the median law. The median line law. Thalweg law means the deepest points of the river becomes your boundary. So I have a river like this, asymmetrical river. I use the deepest point as my reference, and this becomes one country, another country. Okay, I use the deepest point. Okay, the Thalweg is the deepest line joining the deepest points of the river. So we use Thalweg principle. The second median line is ये water का, okay, the median line, almost like a midline. Whatever water width we have on the surface, so the midpoint होगा, is called as the median line. Now, median line is prone to conflicts because river can become broader, narrow, seasons में कुछ होगा. Okay, so median line principle is not the common one. The more common we use is the Thalweg principle. The Thalweg law is more preferred. But the problem with Thalweg law is rivers can meander. Rivers can meander, river can shift. Erosion itself is dynamic. अब ये गहरा है, कल यहाँ गहरा हो जाएगा. Okay, so both the median line, Vedant, you have the water ka width. Okay, they take the central line along the mid waters. This is the width of the water, say 10 kilometers, or 5 kilometers, or 2 kilometers. The midpoint is called the median line. So the boundary is along this, not this one. Okay, the median line coincides with the Thalweg line. Agar river perfectly symmetrical hai, perfectly symmetrical river, okay, then the median line and Thalweg line are same. But ऐसे होता नहीं है. No river is perfectly symmetrical. So both are prone to conflicts, but median more conflicts, इसलिए popular नहीं है. Thalweg is used in many cases. Thalweg. Yes, wherever rivers are used as boundaries, there tend to be conflicts. India, Nepal conflict hai. You have Russia, China ka conflict hai along river Amur. River Amur is the boundary between China and Russia. Thalweg line also between US and Mexico. Rio Grande line, Rio Grande River. Okay, Mekong River is a boundary between Cambodia, Thailand, take a Laos. Danube is one of the rivers, parts of Danube. Okay, a boundary is in parts of Europe. Yes, Zambezi is a boundary. Zambezi River between Tanzania, Mozambique, correct? Okay, so this is the law based on river. The third one is we can use mountains. We can use mountains. Okay, so this law is called as the crest law. the crest line law. So they use the mountain's highest peaks as the boundary, the crest line. McMahon line follows the crest line boundary. McMahon line follows the crest line boundary. It's not a common one, but crest line has been used in Austria, Switzerland, between the French Alps and the Swiss Alps, the Italian Alps and the Swiss Alps, and the McMahon line is also a crest line. And part of the Durand line is also a crest line, not entirely. Part of the Durand line, D-U-R-A-N-D, is also a. The crest lines are difficult to demarcate, because see, when the time they had drawn the boundaries, at that time techniques of surveys were not as refined. Utne mountains mein jaakar triangulation karke, you can always make a mistake. So these three lines. Iske alawa, we can have geometric laws. Geometric laws say lines and arcs as boundaries. Lines are used in longitudes along latitudes. Arcs can be used in case of, again, a river meanders. So agar ye river meandering hai, so they use this arc as a boundary. Or this arc can be the boundary. Geometric arc. It doesn't matter how the river meanders. If arc set ho gaya, it's considered as the boundary. So the boundary of Gambia uses arcs. The river Gambia in Africa, it uses arcs. Lines are very common. Longitude, we can find those boundaries in Africa, in Egypt, in Libya, in Algeria ke boundaries mein. US Canada has latitude 49th parallel. North Korea, South Korea also is a parallel, yes. Yeah. Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. Okay, part of it, not the entire one. Fine. Yes. So the Irian Jaya part. This is the Papua New Guinea island. So this divides. So we have the Indonesian part called as Irian Jaya and Papua New Guinea. Indonesian part and yeah. ठीक है? So अगर आपको laws of boundaries पूछा, आप इतने लिख के आएंगे. Okay, laws based on median line, law of the Thalweg line, law of the crest line, the geometric laws of arcs and lines. That's the answer. So this is one question not asked till now. Okay, I think they can ask you this, but iska bhi applied पूछेगा. Okay, I mean, if I was to frame, I can frame like while there are laws. Frame karo a question. Write down a answer, please. Write down a question. While there are established laws, on the basis of which boundaries are drawn, while there are established laws and conventions, okay, on the basis of which the boundaries are drawn, yet boundaries are prone to conflicts. Whereas frontiers are not governed by laws. Yet historically they have been deterrents to conflicts. They have been more effective deterrents to conflicts than boundaries. Discuss or illustrate or whatever. Make sense, all of you? We generally बोलते हैं जहां पर law बना देते हैं, okay, it should be more established. Problem है जहां पर law नहीं है, lawlessness है. So boundaries are governed by laws. Okay, boundaries. Okay, there are convention practices established how to draw a line. ऐसा कोई practice frontiers में नहीं है. But we find frontiers have been more effective in controlling conflicts, whereas borders have created conflicts. पूरा आंसर ही बनेगा. Frontiers are natural. Frontiers are broader. Frontiers are zones that are not crossed conventionally. Okay, so frontiers are are not competitive. Frontiers पे कोई competition नहीं कर रहा है. Okay, that's why frontiers have been very effective in controlling, okay, conflicts. Tibetan zone or, okay, the Indo-China, Thailand was a frontier zone between French Indochina and the British Indochina. Okay, the Himalayas, the Nepal was, okay, a frontier zone. I said Sahara has been a frontier zone. Amazon has been a frontier zone. Explain this. Okay. Whereas in case of borders, they are man-made. Or frontiers natural होते हैं. Okay. Whereas borders are man-made based on treaties, which are dictated by the victors in a conflict. ट्रीटी तो है, लेकिन ट्रीटी के लिए कौन पुश करता है? Who makes them sign? Those who have won the war, they will say sign, correct? Those who lost the war, they always are uneasy. That's how Treaty of Versailles, even if treaty था, German said that's humiliating. You're going to fight back because of the Versailles war. ठीक है? So it's not really on equal terms. Treaties तो हैं, laws तो हैं, but not on equal terms. Okay. Similarly, boundaries drawn because of the colonial reasons, the Radcliffe Line, or the superimposed boundaries of Africa. Okay. So they again are prone to conflicts. Let's say the boundaries because of Thalweg Line or the Median Line or the Crest Line, meandering river. Okay. Maybe not agreeable crest lines. Okay. So they are prone to. So explain this. And conclusion, you can always say that there are examples of conflicts because of borders in modern times. Give some examples. But then borders which have been antecedent borders, उसमें होता नहीं conflicts. I hope you know what antecedent borders. Okay, borders formed before the cultures have developed, before the areas have been populated, like India. Sorry, like US and Canada. The antecedent boundaries, they're stable. Because the fundamentally superimposed boundaries, subsequent boundaries that cut across administrative and cultural regions, they're more unstable. Explain this answer. And what do you want to say in that? You say that, fine, but what do you want to move towards? If culture is the reason, तो हर boundary में होगा conflict. So tell me what you want to say there. No, it's not. Culture is not the reason of conflict. Okay, unscientific division of cultural regions. Those are areas of conflicts. Okay, cultural divisions which do not respect historical legacies. Okay, they are reasons of conflicts. Don't say culture is the reason for conflict. ठीक है? In time, because yes, you can add that point. Okay, boundaries are a very important concept in nation states. Nation state is a modern concept. Okay, and boundaries are the basis of nation states. आपने एक एरिया को जो otherwise was a nation as a cultural element, उसका आप state बनाया आपने, वो boundary के वजह से बनता है. Therefore, the boundaries are linked to nationalism, identity, a link to sovereignty. Yeah, very nice point. And therefore, okay, if there is a perceived or actual compromise of the borders, it can lead to conflicts. Either perceived or actual compromise of borders, it can lead to conflicts. We have seen this in case of India, China, Ladakh, LAC crossed, whatever is there. So essentially, which is more mature? Are boundaries more mature or the frontiers more mature? Boundaries are more mature. Okay, because they come after, yes. Despite that, agar reasons for the boundaries are not mutually agreeable, they will lead to conflicts. I hope you have a sense of the question now and answer also. इसमें आपको जो example देना आप दे लें, not an issue. Okay, I'm done with this question. Let me get back to our PYQs. Okay. This can be answered. Explain the geometrical boundaries with examples. The only two type of geometrical boundaries, lines and arcs. Okay, lines, longitude, latitudes, ceasefire lines. Okay, and arcs generally meandering वाले में use करते हैं हम लोग. That's about it. ठीक है. And explain बोला है. Tell us how. Okay, you can draw a longitude or a latitude, colonial process, superimpose boundaries, subsequent boundaries. Okay, Africa example, draw करके tell us there are conflicts, no conflicts or whatever. ठीक है. 10 mark, 1.5 page with examples. This is a straight question. I don't think they'll ask you. Okay, but ठीक है. Relevance, applicability of von Thunen theory of agriculture location in today's world. Okay, von Thunen normative theory है. Von Thunen is the medieval agriculture system. In von Thunen, okay, there is no storage concept, no difference of transportation modes. In von Thunen, a closed system. Write the points down. देखें आप लोग. You look so blank at me, I get scared. When I forget, I have taught. Explain the relevance and the applicability of von Thunen theory. The mistake students do is they might end up writing the whole von Thunen theory shuru se end tak. Okay, what is location rent and what is isolated state and what are assumptions? कोई जरूरत नहीं, सीधा hit करो that this is okay agriculture location theory, normative laws हैं ये, ideal conditions. Okay, it was relevant for medieval Europe under some conditional assumptions. Okay, and because the normative theories, they will not be applicable anywhere. Normative theory means the ideal theories, तो कहीं भी applicable नहीं होगा. However, okay, there are some other deeper reasons why the applicability is compromised. So 6-7 points why the applicability is compromised. One is von Thunen was a closed systems concept. Okay, the wilderness you can't cross. There is no external influence. आज के date में all trade, all production systems are globalized, right? Trade, communication, there are no barriers. Okay, so there are influences beyond which the theory discards. Okay, that's one. Second, to write about. Okay, the conditions are not normative in terms of pricing strategies. Okay, it's not typical demand supply balance in pricing, is it? Discounts hai, subsidies hai, hoarding is there. Okay, there is imbalance in supply, okay, because of droughts or floods, the overproduction. So prices are not fixed in reality, therefore won't be applicable. Okay, give examples of glut conditions mein how the prices collapse, tomato, milk and the rest, and how drought conditions, conflicts mein the prices can rise. You have seen that for pulses, for onions. Okay. Third is the isotropic condition is not correct. Okay, we have got land of varying fertility. So in reality, location rent is not a function of distance alone. Location rent is a function of land fertility. It's a function of infrastructure development. जहां पे कनाल है वहां महंगा हो गया लैंड, जहां कनाल नहीं है cheaper land. Prices can be impacted by speculative pricing. No, real estate का price बढ़ रहा है. Talk about that. Next is the theory did not consider the modern means of transport. Refrigeration के साथ है, air travel है. So this model's primary premise was the perishable products, high value products are near the market. You can have a milk train, you can have floriculture, flowers exported. Okay, vegetables can be transported by special containers. In fact, we have seen how milk products are exported from the developed world to developing world. Okay, so mode of transport, communication, refrigeration has altered this. Okay, what else can alter? Okay, can also be new type of new type of farming techniques. Yeah, farmers are also, I mean, in principle उसमें भी apply होगा. When I say perishable, I mean that. Huh? That's next point. So I said changes also because of changing technologies. Changing technologies, जैसे कि think of virtual trading. Virtual trading, okay, and then you have got collective farming. ये नए methods हैं. This can change the prices. And do mention that this model is a pre-behavioral model. A man is economic, man is rational. That's what they're talking about. It's a pre-behavioral model. It doesn't account for perceptions. Cultural values इसमें नहीं है. Okay, you don't have cultural value-based decision making होता नहीं है इसमें. So these are examples of they are not applicable, relevant today. But then do mention that we find some semblance. I think आपके notes में है. In North America, how the intensity increases away from urbanized US, or in case of Europe, draw the diagrams and show that. Mohammad Shafi का diagram in UP along the canals. Mention it at least. घर जाके check कर लेना. North America's cropping pattern, Europe's cropping pattern, UP's cropping pattern. In general, not applicable, but there are some semblances. Looks like they might be applicable. ठीक है, I think you got the answer, no problem. Yes. नहीं है. So इस theory में not applicable is a bigger chunk. Okay, why? Because of the reasons I've explained. So explain the applicability का मतलब है I'm explaining they are not applicable. Move in that line. ठीक है? Okay. So this is done. Question number 5. This is 21 में. Boundaries are important in geopolitics. What issues develop from inclusionary and exclusionary aspect of borders? Borders, they exclude the other regions, and the borders include all internal regions. Okay. So what are issues because of this? The issues will be, okay, conflicts related to, लिख लो आप point. So start the answer by saying, yes, boundaries are important. Demarcated nation state concept. They are the basis of modern countries. Okay, boundaries are important in geopolitics. Agreed. What issues develop from inclusionary and exclusionary aspect of borders? So if you have a border, okay, all of this it gets included, all of this it gets excluded. इससे क्या issue बनता है? Okay, so issues number 1 is, okay, that exclusion sometimes can create conflicts. Okay, particularly if the same cultures are excluded because of the lines. Example of which is superimposed boundaries. एक ही culture है, but एक part आपने exclude कर दिया, इसको आपने कर दिया include. This can create conflicts. Explain that. Second, can inclusion create conflicts? Yes. There can be cultures or identities that historically don't see them as part of the nation state. Think of what's happening for Xinjiang province and Uyghurs. They don't see them as parts of this. So including certain cultural regions can also create conflicts. USSR इसी टूट गया ना. The USSR boundary was including ethnic diversity that refused to acknowledge the supremacy of the Russian Slavs. ठीक है? So exclusion can cause conflicts. Inclusion can also cause conflicts. ठीक है? Examples. Even India-Pakistan issue is because of this. ठीक है? So that's one. Second is exclusion can cause conflicts. If there are certain valued resources that are denied to a country or to a nation state. If some resources get denied to the nation state. मतलब यहां पर कुछ ऐसा रिसोर्स है, ये बाउंड्री बना के आपने इनको मना कर दिया कि आपका है नहीं. एग्जाम्पल है इसका? China and Philippines. Okay, talking about the fishing resources of South China Sea. Okay, fine, accepted. You have drawn a boundary where one political entity is denied access to resources. So yes, fine, South China Sea could be one reason. Iska best reason hai between the France and the German border. Okay, there are two areas. One is Saar and Lorraine, coalfields and the iron ore of the Franco-German border. This has created conflicts. Okay. Third, exclusion can block a free movement of populations, in particular certain nomadic tribal communities or refugee movement because of conflicts. ये अफ्रीका में है. The Maasai tribes of the Savannah regions of Tanzania, or the tribal movements across Egypt and Libya, or the tribal movements in Central Asia. Okay, so you draw a boundary, you refuse the cultures to move across the lines, and that can cause conflicts. Central Asia में है, Africa में है. Okay. अच्छा, next. The boundaries can also artificially separate certain natural, okay, biogeographical regions. They can artificially separate natural biogeographical regions. The natural movement of wildlife, natural path of migrations across the grasslands. So they are denied. So if you know about the great migrations in again African savanna, I don't know if you have heard about this or not. Like every year, thousands and thousands of animals they move. Oh, natural hai. And the boundaries can create conflicts. Serengeti Plains of Africa. Serengeti Plains of Africa. Similarly, migrations across Himalayan zones. India, Nepal, India, Tibet. Always keep checking the question, okay? Exclusionary and inclusionary, okay, say can cause geopolitical conflicts, right? ये लिखा आपने, or issues because of the inclusionary and exclusionary aspects of the borders. Yes, correct. Kenya and Tanzania and Serengeti. Inclusionary, you've added a region that does not want to be part of this region. Okay, so next point आ रहे हैं. Inclusionary reason problems can also be because of attempts to mainstream or homogenize societies. Inclusionary challenges can also be because of attempts to mainstream and homogenize the cultures and societies. It's again happening in, I mean, har jagah hai, but I think a lot of news in Tibet. Okay, the Tibetans are made to change their cultures and behave like Han Chinese. So Tibetans, Uyghurs, abhi bahut news mein hai, the Karen tribes of Myanmar. They're fighting back the military junta. Karen, there's a tribe called as Karen tribes. The Karen tribes, the Chin tribes, okay, they're made to become like the others, they're fighting back. They're like the rebels, insurgents in parts of Myanmar. Yes, I told that to you, no? And of course, yes, ये तो idea है. That this common culture, you draw a line, we excluded this area and included this area. So this cultural area gets divided. It's happening in Kurdistan, absolutely. Between Iraq, between Turkey, yes, absolutely correct. Fine. Balochistan, okay, they're trying to homogenize them across Pakistan, fine. Baloch culture is different from the Sindhis or the Punjabis of Pakistan. I repeat, these kind of answers you cannot anticipate. You have to create them in the exam hall. So learn to read the questions. और यही 15-20 examples हैं. You master this, you have got the answer. You must know how to interpret the words of the question. What are exclusionary and yes, all these questions with examples. Fine, let's move on. Yes, part of culture itself. करतारपुर कॉरिडोर की बात कर रहे हो ना, इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान? एब्सोल्युटली, यस, ये तो कल्चर का पार्ट है ना. द लाइन हैज एक्सक्लूडेड सम पार्ट, जेरूसलम, एब्सोल्युटली, यस. ओके, लेट्स गेट बैक. Critical account of Weber theory. It's again a straight question. Okay. Relevance of von Thunen. बता दिया present context में. Most frontiers have been replaced by boundaries. Why? Why have the frontiers been replaced by the boundaries? Give me 4 reasons. One, of course, yes. Frontiers थे because the areas were not explored. We lacked technologies, we lacked scientific knowledge to explore and enter the uncharted areas. Okay, but as we explore more, definitely we no longer see the frontiers as natural barriers. So frontiers were seen as barriers types. Okay, that's one. Second reason is, yes, the frontier zones are resource regions. Resource regions hoga, so you'll definitely enter. Think of Arctic as resource regions. Okay, think of Sahara oil regions. You will enter the frontier regions. Okay. Third, there are political expansionist tendencies. Okay, you want to conquer more land, more water, more territories. So when you expand, you will have conflicts. And ultimately, the frontier gets transformed into a boundary. Okay. And fourth is communications. You're able to, and that's part of, again, technology, correct? And yes, ultimately, treaties. So write down the reasons. How have the frontiers changed into boundaries? So number one, okay, frontiers are not seen as absolute barriers that cannot be crossed. Frontiers not seen as absolute barriers that cannot be crossed. Okay. Second reason, discovery of resources. Discovery of resources. Example देते रहना please. Resources, Arctic resource, Sahara में oil resources. ठीक है, Central Asian regions again have resources. ठीक है, the resources of Colorado region. Okay, the Californian desert, you have crossed that. Gold hai, oil hai. Third is the geopolitical expansionist ambitions. The geopolitical expansionist ambitions. This probably happens from the colonial times. The Spanish, the Dutch enter into Amazon, no longer a boundary, frontier zones. Okay, Poland and Russia, वहां पर frontier zones था. Marshes called as Pripet marshes, Pripet, Pripet marshes in Eastern Europe were frontiers of Russia. They've crossed that frontiers. Okay, German crossing the Alps into Austria, challenging the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. See, ये political ambitions expansion. China's expansion into Tibet. Sorry? हाँ, yes. जितने भी colonies बने हैं, they have entered territories. Fine. Right. Yes, you can add the plantation agriculture, their economic activities. Okay, fine. And the last I said is communication. Okay, roadways, railways, airways. They help cross the frontiers. Okay, and ultimately, the lines drawn as a consequence of some agreement or treaties or whatever. Yes, Krishna, you can add whatever examples you like. Okay, so frontiers are no longer absolute. You have converted them into borders. Fine. Acha, एक और reason I forgot. Many frontiers were also because of the colonial histories. Frontiers also because of colonial histories that tried to keep the European powers apart. They tried to keep the European powers apart. जैसे कि सहारा में good part of Sahara was frontier between the German and the French territories. Understandable था कि हम इसमें घुसेंगे नहीं. Okay? So Thailand was between French and British Indochina. British was India, Myanmar. The French was, Cambodia, Laos. So with the decline of the colonial history, the frontiers are today irrelevant. Decline of the colonial history, then they have used whatever superimposed boundary, whatever, to convert the frontiers into the boundaries. Okay, I think Weber, von Thunen, and laws of frontier boundaries you can handle now. Okay, let me take up a new discussion. This is a very common question. Mackinder, Spikeman ka, what is the relevance? Every alternate year they ask you this question. Okay, tell us Mackinder's relevance looking at the present geopolitics. This is a very dynamic answer. हर साल आपको track रखना पड़ेगा. Okay, how okay, the events are part of Mackinder's principle or Spikeman principle. These kind of questions go start the answer with that these are 19th century, these are 20th century theories. Okay, when there was less sophistication in technology and warfare, there was less sophistication in technology and warfare. When conflicts continue to be mostly military conflicts were military conflicts, and the advantages or disadvantages were seen more in terms of conventional resources. The advantages and disadvantages were more in terms of the conventional resources, conventional land, conventional minerals, or water, in those sense. We don't see resource in terms of digital, we don't see resource in terms of lithium resources. वैसा नहीं है. So conventional resources, agriculture was a resource, agricultural land. Okay, when the threats to security were also conventional. We don't talk about terrorism. Okay, we didn't talk about refugee movements as a problem, or the military alliances like NATO. वो सब नहीं था. Okay, so definitely Mackinder and Spikeman theory will not be relevant in letter and spirit in the present day context. यहाँ से शुरू करना. Please don't write the entire Mackinder theory. You have to use Mackinder's concepts or Spikeman's concept. Start the answer. ये conventional theories हैं, old theories हैं, based on some assumptions, based on some older concepts of security. Therefore, in letter and spirit, these theories will not be applicable. That's one. The second point is Mackinder theory applies more to Western Europe. It applies more to Western Europe and its relationship with Russian heartland. Its relationship with Russian heartland. So for Mackinder, the whole world was essentially Europe and Russia. हालांकि later times में he modified the Midland Basin and said US भी है, ठीक है. Otherwise, for Mackinder, the geopolitical contestation, the geopolitical जो race है, it is largely between Western Europe, that to Britain की बात हो रही है. Mackinder was an Englishman, a British, and its relationship with Russia and its empire. आज के डेट में Western Europe is definitely not the major geopolitical power. Therefore, वो applicable कम होगा. Whereas for Spikeman, it was a US worldview. For Spikeman, it was a US worldview where the objective was to contain the Russian communism. The objective was to contain Russian communism and not allowing the rimland to integrate, and not allowing the rimland arc जो है वो integrate होके one power नहीं बन जाए. Okay, if the whole thing becomes one power, imagine a condition where India collaborates with Pakistan, with Iran, with Iraq, with Middle East, probably with Southeast Asia, China, and East. If they collaborate as one, okay, then they control the world geopolitics. The US idea was hold Russia and don't let the arc integrate into one political unit. Okay, this was a US centric view, which again is not the reality. Okay, and today we have new challenges. We have got missile wars, cyber wars, arms race, nuclear race, a space race, okay, biological weapons, okay. Problems of your pandemics. These are new threats, currency wars, trade wars, new elements of geopolitical conflicts, which these theories could not have anticipated. Okay. Then you say, what are the events that look like they are aligned to Mackinder's heartland? What are those geopolitical developments that seem to be in support of Mackinder's heartland? So one is, of course, there is rise of Russia under Putin. There is an element of consolidation, an expansionist tendency of Russia again. This looks like a heartland consolidating. Rise of Russia under Putin. Okay, and Russia's growing influence in Belarus, in Moldova, Russia influencing Finland, okay, Russia's growing or ambitious footprints in Afghanistan, Russia's influence in Northern Caucasus, Chechnya, and the rest. Okay, so this looks like Mackinder's heartland is back in contention. I can give you the points. आप इसको develop करना होगा. Draw the map and show whatever. This one. Number two is China's BRI. China trying to consolidate Central Asia. China developing deep relationship with Russia. Okay. So these are elements that look like, okay, and subtly you can say NATO's perceived ambition to expand its influence to the borders of Russia. NATO's perceived ambition, okay, bola nahi inhone, looks like that. Slowly, gradually, Hungary, Romania, trying Ukraine. So this looks like NATO advancing towards the Russian heartland. So these elements look like Mackinder's theory. And of course, do talk about the revival of the 20th century Cold War between the US and Russia. This is what Mackinder was predicting between the heartland and the Midland Basin. I hope you remember this. The 1942-43 ka jo modification tha, what did he say? That ultimately Western Europe will become less important. The conflict will be between the heartland and the Midland Basin. So the rise why again the revival of the 20th century Cold War looks like a Mackinder's relevance. So ye 4-5 events yaad rakhna. Now come towards what are the events that look like Spikeman's relevance. Spikeman's relevance. So the rimland or the outer crescent arc, the rimland or the outer crescent arc continues to be an influential geopolitical arena. The South China Sea crisis, the Middle East crisis, third, the rise of India, fourth, the Chinese maritime Silk Route ambitions, जो आपके 4-5 जो ports हैं China के, Sittwe, okay, you have got Hanbantota, you have got Djibouti, your Cocos Island. Okay, so what are those important? Okay, Chinese ports कहाँ पर है? We have at Sittwe. We have Cocos Island in Myanmar. Chinese in Hambantota in Sri Lanka. China in the Gwadar port. So map में दिखाना पड़ेगा आपको. Okay, Gwadar port, China, Chinese and military all presence in Djibouti. The Russian presence in port of Sudan. ठीक है. So all of this is part of the string of pearls. और इसलिए आप पढ़ रहे हो आप, the Chinese submarines and destroyers are in Arabian Sea. They were docked in Pakistan Karachi port as a part of their naval, okay, Pakistan Army and plan. Plan is okay, the naval body of China. Okay, so this looks like the ark is alive. And do talk about the Indo-Pacific strategy. The Indo-Pacific strategy, the rise of Quad. Indo-Pacific strategy, the rise of Quad. Okay, so these look like the rimland is still alive concept. So, 2-3-4 point. If they ask you how is Spikeman relevant, write this and then say that these look like Spikeman is challenged. If they ask you how Mackinder relevant, write this and then say this is how Mackinder gets challenged. A generic discussion bata diya aapko. Is it okay, all of you? Okay. So conclusion is that geopolitics is much dynamic, new elements. Okay, much dynamic, new elements hai. The conflicts are beyond ideological conflicts or simply resource conflicts. There are new elements of climate geopolitics, energy geopolitics. Okay, so geopolitics cannot be viewed as, therefore, geopolitics cannot be viewed as a simple land water domination conflict. Geopolitics cannot be viewed as simple land water domination conflict. Mackinder was about the land powers, Spikeman was about the sea powers. It's not simply land water or land sea conflicts. Okay, and the necessity. Okay, India के सब add कर सकते हो. Have you heard about the theater command now? Trying to integrate all Air Force, Navy, space का तो already हमारा theater है more or less, nuclear वाला. Okay, Air Force, Navy, Army into one command. It tells us that all the three have, if we add cybersecurity and nuclear, all the 5 have equal significance in conflicts. Land, air, sea, you have got nuclear and cyber. ये सब मिलाकर, it's not simply land versus the sea anymore. That's the answer. So look at the questions now. How and why Mackinder modified? Is state question. How and why Mackinder modified pivot area after the world wars? Is a state question. Okay, what conditions changed? Relevance of Rimland theory in contemporary world. Okay, the heartland theory is gaining importance once again. Okay, सब इसमें ही आ जाएगा. Differentiate borders and frontiers. Describe geometrical boundaries with examples. Relevance of heartland in contemporary world. I hope you can handle now. Okay, so my point here is, please do not write the answers mechanically. ये heartland देखते ही लिख दिया नहीं. You give a sense of geography and maps. All of these answers should have maps. Draw the diagrams, locations. Okay, fine. I'm giving you some questions now. This is PYQ more or less done. Write down some questions. any growth pole, so any growth that occurs towards a specific location, any growth that occurs towards a specific location is the result of discontinuous growth, a result of discontinuous growth from a location. Comment. $10 or 15 mark, whatever you want, not more than 2 pages definitely, but 1.5 page should be good here. So any growth that occurs towards a specific location is a result of discontinuous growth towards that location. Comment on this. Let's go systematic one by one. सबसे पहले क्वेश्चन टैग क्या है? कमेंट है. What does comment mean? Your opinion, you can disagree, you can agree, your choice. Okay, but importantly, there's always two sides to it. You can disagree majorly and agree somewhat, or you can agree majorly and disagree somewhat. That's your choice. That's generally is the safer one. Okay, so give your opinion. Next, the question says कि कोई भी any growth is always a consequence of discontinuous expansion. You tell me what you must write down. Majorly yes and no, or majorly no and yes. What will you want to write down on? Majorly yes and plus no add karoge, or majorly no, okay, plus yes. What do you want to say? My suggestion, majorly yes. Okay, growth is never an equal process. Growth never happens equally, continuously, linearly. Okay, growth is never a secular process. Okay, it's always an even process.